Hi, everybody. Welcome to Power of Knowing Forums, Knowledge Nexus, tech that moves you, ideas that scale you. From cloud infrastructure to cybersecurity to growth and strategies and leadership insights, our four pillars have empowered professionals worldwide. And today we are talking on a topic on are AI strategies the next security crisis from code to compliance with cybersecurity strategy, your go-to podcast on tech, cybersecurity, strategy, and growth. I am Prem Kumar AS, your host today. We will explore how cybersecurity is going to play an important role in the AI world, which is going to be talking about code to compliance from start to how we maintain the compliance. A special welcome to everybody who's joined us from Power of Knowing Forum. And a big thank you for being in our journey. Here we continue to grow and succeed, right? To have the topic discussed, we have the honor of Dr. Lalit Gupta, fractional CISO, cybersecurity governance expert, and an ex-founder. Let's join us in welcoming a esteemed speaker to our podcast event, and let's dive into the event. Sir, welcome to our podcast, sir. How are you today, sir?
Good. Namaskar.
There a small intro about yourself, your journey, sir, and you are called the cyber doctor. So we want to know about what exactly is a doctor that we are talking about in cyber security and your journey to the audience. What is, sir?
Uh, thank you, Mr. Prem Kumar, for having me here. So, as we see, my name is Dr. Lalit Gupta, and also known as Cyber Doctor. That's a story. I'll discuss how I got that tag name. So, I'm in field for over 30 years now, with the working experience globally in cybersecurity, risk governance, digital transformation. Currently, I'm associated with a group called Al Jihaz Holding. We are a group of 64 subsidiaries in 19 countries, and I am the global chief of security and global DPO for Al Jihaz. Throughout my career, 25, 30 years, I have focused on aligning security with business growth, reducing enterprise risk by 50%, automating 70% of compliance operations. That is my current status in Al Jihaz. I'm deeply involved in the AI startup ecosystem also for last 5, 6 years. I have founded and advised ventures that harness artificial intelligence to solve complex cybersecurity and governance challenges. Beyond my corporate and entrepreneur roles, I serve as a president for Cybersecurity Council for India. In Cybersecurity Council, we advocate for forward-looking cyber policy, and we talk about a program called Cyber Patriot, which is my brainchild. In that, we educate youth and aspiring cybersecurity leaders on real world cyber threats. So, my mission all my life has been to create secure, intelligent, and inclusive digital ecosystems through innovation, leadership, and education. So, that's me. Now, the cyber doctor, I was working in the Middle East. This is what, 12, 13 years back when I completed my PhD, and my clients in the Arab world, uh, like their English is not that good, right? So instead of cyber security, they used to say cyber. And I recently did a PhD and I started using Dr. Lalit Gupta. So they said, "Oh, you are a different kind of doctor. You're a cyber doctor." So that's how I got that tag name, and I started using it. And today that has become more famous than my name.
That's the title that you are getting it, I think, sir.
Yes.
Sir, ta- thank you for that intro, sir. Let's dive into the topic saying that we are building a cyberspace which is going to be mm, protected all the time. It has to be protected. What we see is are today's AI startups building more risk than
Absolutely. Let's be honest. AI startups today are sprinting like they are in a rocket race. Features, launches, too much of hype. Everyone wants to be the first. But here is the problem. When you build fast and ignore the bolts holding the ship together, like security, you don't launch a product, you're launching a liability.
Yeah.
I was working with this startup. They had an incredible vision: AI for real time hiring.
Mm.
Investors loved it, users were onboarding, but the whole backend was running without authentication. Yeah, without authentication, you heard it right. You could guess a URL and see everybody's resume. Now, I don't call that innovation. That's an open invitation to disaster.
Okay.
We glorify MVP culture today, but too often, viable leaves out safe. Security is not a speed bump, it's the brake on your Ferrari. You can still fly, but you can stop whenever it matters. So, the truth is, if you don't embed security on day one, you'll be spending day 100 cleaning up breaches, calling lawyers, and trying to win the trust back. Build with safety at the center, and you will unlock innovation that actually lasts. So, this is a serious problem today, sir.
Okay. Sir, taking that as a cue, what was the most overlooked cybersecurity mistake you've seen in emerging AI products? Because, as you rightly said in the previous pointer, everybody wants to do it fast and they
Correct.
wanted to go to the market. Are they undermining the security pointers, or is that is going to be a challenge? That's what we would like to have
You
your
know, it's very simple. Very simple stuff. The stuff that does not sound sexy but can destroy you, like unsecured APIs,
yeah.
misconfigured permissions, poor access controls. The digital equivalent of leaving your house key under the welcome mat with a neon sign saying I'm on vacation. I did an audit recently for an AI startup in healthcare. Impressive tech, gorgeous UI, but one endpoint was exposing raw patient data. No rate limits, no authentication, just wide open like it was hanging out candy. When I asked the team, they said, "Oh, we didn't know anyone could find the URL also." Guys, this is the wake up call. Everything is discoverable. Anything that is online is discoverable, especially to someone with intent. If I want to find it out, I will find it out. Another overlooked problem: using open source models without verifying their provenance or their license. You are building the brain of your product using someone else's work that might have biases, vulnerabilities, or even malware baked in. Security is not just about firewalls, it is understanding the assumptions you make and cleaning them up before someone else does. So that's a scary situation today.
I think what you're saying is absolutely, because when we look at security, we are not looking at the entire infrastructure. We are looking at a piece of information. We still have. I've been talking this in many podcasts that we did. Cybersecurity was and is considered as a overhead for the organization, if you really look at. And starting from what we spoke about in network security, when we started, it was all physical infrastructure, where we said network was separate and security was a separate thing. Then they clubbed it into information security. Information security then became cyber security.
Cybersecurity.
And we are on the, when cloud came in, we said we are going to talk about cyber security now.
With cloud security.
Now there's another layer under cloud. This one, cyber security. We have cloud security. Then we have DevSecOps. Then we have security
Correct.
operations and all these things. So I think that's the landscape. So is AI becoming a new attack surface?
Absolutely. And it's not a future risk. It is happening right now. We've entered an era where it is not about breaking into your servers. It's about influencing your model,
Hmm.
poisoning your training data, stealing your weights, tricking your logic. Imagine teaching your child that red means go and green means stop, and then letting them cross the street. That's what data poisoning does to AI. In one of the earlier assignments, some researcher tweaked just 0.5% of a data set, and the model started misclassifying hate speech as harmless banter, subtle, invisible, but devastating. And then there is this adversarial input, a sticker on a stop sign that makes a self driving car think it's a yield sign. That's not a science fiction. That has been tested already. So we have to stop thinking of cybersecurity as protecting code and start thinking of it as protecting cognition. If someone hijacks how your AI sees the world, they control your product's decisions. And that's a battlefield now. So AI has definitely become a new attack surface. And it is now, it's not future.
I think you're rightly saying that there was one case study which we were talking in one of our episodes where we said even the most expensive or the most highly valued books which written by authors are online. Now, anything that comes in, you don't buy it, you ask them to give a summary, it gives a summary, and that's how. So, the
Done.
whole pointer is the privacy part is completely going into a loop is what what we see, right? And that's where we see when we come and talk about this, how is compliance versus speed? What advice would you give for startup leaders under pressure to ship? Because as you said in the first question itself, we
You
want
know,
to ship it. We want to ship it. We will do version 1, 1.1, 1.2, but we want to ship the version 1, right? And
correct.
that's the situation where startups are in a pressure to deliver. So what is your take on it, sir?
Mr. Prem, every founder I have met till date, everybody feels that super urgency to ship fast. There is a pressure from investors, users, from their own team. But moving fast without securing your foundation is like building a skyscraper on sand. They built Burj Khalifa in Dubai, but they had dug 140 feet deep and they put concrete 140 feet deep, and then only they built a skyscraper. But building a skyscraper on sand would look fine until the first strong wind and it will collapse.
Yeah,
So there was this startup that integrated DevSecOps into their workflow. Now you talked about DevSecOps, so this reminded me. Not by hiring a 10% compliance team, but by adding three things only: basic static code analysis, automated dependency checks, and privacy design views. You know what happened? They actually sped up the development because they were not constantly stopping to fix security issues after the fact. So, security is not a roadblock, it can actually give you speed. Security is like brushing your teeth while running a marathon. You don't need to stop, you just need to stay disciplined. So, yes, build lean, but also build smart because security debt compounds faster than the technical debt, and
yeah.
it's a nightmare to refinance.
I agree on that, sir, because I was part of a organization where we were looking at privacy. How do we look at? We wanted to design products where we wanted to look at privacy by design or by default. So, so when we started looking at it, I was very particular saying it should be by default. You should have certain default things that you should have strong passwords. There should be a check-in and check-out. There should be a log that should be maintained. Everything should be recorded, whether who did the check-in. You cannot have a code getting checked from a non-production to a QA without
Absolutely,
testing it in
absolutely.
the dev environments. First, you have to have a staging environment before you move it to production. Bring the real users to the staging environment, tell them to test for a small thing. So we wanted to bring such things as a policy and by default privacy or cyber security or compliance as a security. It should not be a tick mark that we say we've done, we are good. The new things
Absolutely.
come in, and that's where we get into trouble. What could go wrong when startups skip security audits in their AI journeys?
Everything. And I mean everything. There are startups I've seen, they lose millions, not from an actual hack, but from lost trust. After a minor leak, one team I was working with, they had a brilliant AI product. But during due diligence, a potential enterprise client asked them for their security audit report. The founder blinked and said, "We have never done one." Meeting over.
Hmm.
That client never came back. So it is not just about breaches, it is about the credibility you carry. You're saying, yes, we have kicked the tires, but we have opened the hood. If you
Yeah.
skip the audit, you're basically saying we don't really know what happens under there. Think of it like a restaurant inspection. The food inspector comes, he finds the food delicious, but if the inspector finds the rats in the back, good luck keeping customers. Audits aren't a nuisance, they are the narrative of your maturity. So they are must.
I think what you said is very practically and actually should be done in terms of what we are doing as a security part, because uh, we are in a generation where we talk about even a website having a HTTPS can bring down your scores, right? When in a small audit. Now, what are the ports which are opened when you scan your servers? That
Correct.
is another pointer that we should look at. So people have ways to find out where and all are threats. Earlier days, you had a security that was in prim, which was your protection. Whatever you allowed was only allowed. Rest they were not in a position to scan itself. So we are not in that world, and those devices are old dated devices actually to speak these
Absolutely.
days. Right now, how should the global startups align with emergent AI governance framework like EU Act or India's DPDP Act?
Okay. So here is the thing. These regulations are not future problems. They are already reshaping how AI is built. You can't just move fast and break things anymore. If you break something now, it is not just a bad day, it's fine. A lawsuit or worse, a loss of user trust later on, which no money can buy back. So there was this team in Mumbai building a consumer AI tool. Brilliant engineers, but they had not read India's DPDP bill. Now it has become Act. It was bill that time. They were collecting all kinds of user data, birthdays, phone numbers, preferences without clear consent or retention policy. They were not evil, they were just unaware. So that's how it usually starts. But compliance is not a burden and should not be a burden. Compliance is a blueprint. The European Union AI Act, for example, gives you a playbook. Assess your risk, document your processes, make your AI explainable. It's like building a house with earthquake codes. You are not planning for disaster, but you are just making sure it won't collapse when the ground shakes. So startups that align early don't just survive the regulation; they attract customers who care. So that becomes a differentiator for them.
Yeah, sir, that's right. So what we are talking is more looking at the acts that we are going to be following in that specific region. That's one thing. Now, every country is having a different law that is there. Now, looking at GDPR for European, CCPA for
And
US
GDPR also
markets.
two now.
Yeah,
There's one
GDPR plus
European
one.
Union, one UK.
Now GDPR is becoming a norm. Now how do we protect data is now with DPDP is what I understand from the pointer is you'll have to look at getting data which has to be informed. How did you process it? What kind of data was
Yes,
it? How many
I
days will
agree.
you take?
Very
What is
important.
the archival backup? And when are you going to delete it? So I need confirmation is what we are looking at. And what I really liked in DPDP is that digital assets were always told it is not my responsibility. Now, digital assets are going to be the user's responsibility, and they have to take care of their digital assets. And protecting them is their challenge. Now, government can fine you up to 250 crores, is what I understand from
Yes,
the
it is
DP
very
Act.
much clear now.
Yeah, it is clear. It is clear. Whoever collects data has to give a written consent saying this is what they are doing and what is that we are doing. Now, coming to that, how do global startups look at our founders really understand what it means to make AI secure by design, which we spoke some time back, right? So, how can the founders make AI secure by designs?
See, in theory, it has to be there. It is good to have, but in practice, nobody is following. Secure by design means you are not taping locks on the windows after the burglars already came through the chimney. You're planning for the breach before you write the first line of code. It's not a checkbox, it's a philosophy. One founder, he told me, we will get a security team after product market fit. I said, cool. And when you get hacked before them, he was confused. He did not laugh. The best teams I have seen bringing security into every sprint. They start with threat modeling. They give every engineer just enough access, not admin by default. They encrypt locally, log responsibly, and review every third party integration like it might bite them. Security by design is how you bake resilience into your product's DNA. Without it, you are building a glass castle and hoping no one throws the stones. So, secure by design has to be there.
No, I think your pointer is clearly saying that you need to look at starting of everything, and by default it has to be included. And with being any product, I think the government has put down a lot of guidelines in terms of how do you start, where do you secure. It cannot be 100% secure also. There could be some break, but you will have to at least comply at least 70 to
Yeah,
80%.
reach somewhere and
Yeah,
then keep on
then
improving.
keep on improving, because when 100% security implemented also, the product will fail. That's what I think when we talk about cybersecurity. Can cybersecurity help AI startups to stand out to VCs and the enterprise buyers?
100%. And that can become your differentiator, USP. In fact, I think cybersecurity is one of the most underrated deal makers in AI right now. Nobody's talking about. Imagine two AI startups walk into a VC meeting.
Mhm.
One says, we have trained this incredible model and we are growing very fast. The other says, we have trained a secure, explainable, regulation ready model and we are growing responsibly. Guess which one gets the follow up call?
The second one gets the, because we are saying responsibility, right? So that is where we talk about.
Secure, explainable, unbiased, because I checked all of those things, right? So there was this team last year, they won their first enterprise client
Hmm.
because she showed up to the meeting with a security white paper, not just a pitch, not just a demo, but a thought through approach to user data, breach response, and access controls. The client said, you are already doing what our legal team would ask for. So, in this noisy market, security is not just a shield, it's a signal that you are built to last. So, it is definitely a differentiator.
No, agreed on that pointer, because now, as we spoke in the earlier pointers, before they come to you for an audit or investment or anything, they look at how secure is the code getting being deployed, the
Absolutely.
current infrastructure, your websites, your mobile apps, where are they hosted, who is the host, where is it residing, where the data is getting pushed. Are you hosted in India or in the US? Where is the data going? What kind of data is getting pushed?
And
Everything is
hey,
getting looked at.
you know what is the key in that? Say all these things to the VC before they ask you.
Yes.
That should be part of the pitch itself.
Yes, that's a crucial point that is coming in all of the things that we are talking about. How do we look at? some of the models, sir, where how do you ensure explainability and transparency in the AI models to meet ethical
Okay,
security standards?
think of it this way. If your AI is a black box, then your user is in dark and no one trusts what they cannot understand. Transparency doesn't mean your users need to be data scientists. It just means you don't treat your AI like a wizard behind a curtain.
Okay.
So there was this mental health startup. They built an explainability layer for their emotion detection AI. So instead of just saying, you seem stressed, the app showed the tone signals, the word patterns, and response cadence that led to the conclusion. Suddenly, users felt seen and not judged. And you know what else? It helped them find a bug in their model. Because when you force yourself to explain the logic, you see the flaws yourself. So transparency is good for users. It's also good for you.
Yeah.
So every AI model has to be explainable and transparent.
Okay, got that point, sir. Now we are talking in an age where everything has to be looking at human centric, right? Or uh, what I would say is, before going to human centric thing, I want to understand what role should CISOs play in mentoring or guiding AI startups. Because
Hmm.
before I go into the AI and the human part, I wanted to say, how do we look at CISOs playing a role?
You asked me the question which is very near to my heart. Okay, every AI founder needs a CISO in their life, not necessarily full time, but in
Hmm.
their circle. CISOs are like war veterans in the cyber battlefield. They've seen the breaches,
Yeah.
they've felt the 2 a.m. call when a database leaks, they know what not to do because they have already done it once, twice, thrice, maybe more than that. So there was this accelerator that assigned one CISO mentor to every AI team. The insights these founders got were invaluable. Things like, hey, don't use that LLM vendor. They don't support data residency in your region. Or that encryption approach. No, it breaks under concurrency. So that kind of wisdom, you can't Google it. You earn it. Or you borrow it from someone who already paid the price. So every AI startup must have a CISO as a mentor, 100%.
Yeah, as you rightly said, the CISOs are going to play a very important role in the board going forward, because without their guidance and support, the AI products or the go to market strategies will be looked at very seriously, because they have to look at many parameters how this pointers to which a normal software developer or a architect would not know, in terms of how it can fail us when we look at the vulnerabilities or the audits that come into
Right.
play, when we look at data that we are fetching, the APIs, the endpoints, the code itself being checked in the way that has to be looked at. Now, we've been talking AI. Now, we don't build systems for machines. We build systems for ourselves, right? So it is going to be a human enhancement or ease of work is what we are trying to bring AI to bring the work to go. What human centric elements must AI startups focus, avoiding becoming the future
You know,
cybersecurity
this
liabilities?
this question I'm facing since my cybersecurity startup days. Tech is never the weakest link. People are.
People are, yeah.
Yeah. I have seen startups spending millions on machine learning and nothing on human training. The result, a junior engineer uploads a sensitive data set to a public repository, or a marketeer opens a phishing email. Boom, game over.
Yeah.
Security is not just about code, it's a culture. It's
Yes.
how your team talks about risk. It's whether your interns feel safe flagging something suspicious. It's whether your Slack channels normalize saying, wait, should we encrypt that? One startup I love gives every new hire a Cyber Habit 101 checklist. It's fun, it's friendly, and it sets the tone. We protect what we build. That's what human centric security looks like. And humans are the weakest link. Absolutely.
So now coming to the next point that I want to look at is what are some hidden cyber risks in third party AI models or APIs that startups often miss? Because now we've been talking about three, four things now where we spoke about security at the outer side. We spoke of security about the inside side. And we're talking about human centric. And now we want to look at how the vendors we bring in also adhere to the security parameters for the organization. Because most of the time, what I understand is vendors are not that equipped when you meet the organizations on the security side also. So, how do we look at selecting some of these vendors and
I, I
what is
look at
the
I look at them like Trojan horses of modern AI. Those shiny pre-trained models you found online, they might be brilliant.
yeah,
They might also be bugged, biased, backdoored. I
yeah,
reviewed this one startup that
mm,
used an open source model trained on Reddit.
okay,
Everything worked fine until the chatbot starting swearing at users during onboarding. Turns out the model learned language from some less than civilized threads. Another team integrated an API from a popular LLM platform. They did not know that all prompts were stored by default for training improvement. Their app collecting confidential user questions. Massive privacy fail. So every third party AI tool you use should go through the same vetting process as a new hire. Where it is from, what does it know, who else has access. So if you don't would not trust in your living room, don't invite it into your architecture. So as simple as that. Even if you are outsourcing, even if you are hiring a third party tool, the responsibility remains yours. Take care of it.
I think what you are clearly saying is it is more to look at how you bring a person into your house and trust, and if the trust is there, how far do you let him into the house?
No,
That's
correct.
very
See,
very practical
uh,
way of looking at it,
uh,
where the trust
one
becomes
of
more important.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. One of the car vendors in UK I worked with,
Okay,
they introduced a concept called wallet key.
okay,
Now these days, cars doesn't have keys. We have those remote locks, right? I
yeah,
open it, close it, and that lock is used for everything.
hmm,
There is a wallet key introduced by some manufacturers. When we give our cars to the valet in hotels or restaurants or in malls, we give them that wallet key, not the real remote. So they can
hmm,
start, they can drive and park it, but they cannot open the trunk. So
okay.
that's actually what I'm talking about.
Okay, so I think we are going into the space where we talk about security on the device that you hand over to somebody else as well, right? So that's the analogy that we are trying to look at when we talked about this car example, right? So I think that's a very, as a founder or a leader, how do we embed culture of security, cyber security in a young startup? So because again
Culture.
we also look at when we talk about cyber security, we don't see the startups spending or looking at that kind of money when they start up. So cyber security is a cost, it's not going to bring them revenue. So how do they concentrate? That's the point we want to
See,
understand.
culture does not start with policies. Culture does not come with spending of money. It starts with people, and especially with everybody, you, me, everybody else. So if the founder cares about security, the team will also do. If you say we will deal with that later, and then that later never comes.
Hmm.
So there was this one founder who opened every Friday stand up with one question: What is one thing we did this week to protect our users? That one ritual turned security into a habit. Engineers brought it into code reviews. Designers started thinking about privacy uh, front ends. It became part of the air they breathed. You cannot force culture, but you can plant it. And when you water it with intention, it grows into meaningful, powerful something. And that's how culture is built. Over to you, sir.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute because I think what we are talking about is we are talking about it is first to protect the humans, the main element there, and humans protect the systems that we build. That's the cycle that we are talking about when we protect them and we don't allow them, and there's a trust that is getting built around. Is
You
that
know,
what we are talking about, sir?
there is this famous saying from HR circles: you take care of your employees, they will take care of your clients and your business.
Yeah,
So that's what we are talking about here.
I think you are rightly saying that treat your employees first. The clients will be treated better than what you treat them.
They will do it.
A little bit, yeah. That now, uh, how or what's your take in the shift from secure code to secure data in the AI world?
Hmm.
Yes.
This
Now,
is,
code
yeah,
was one thing that we had to secure. Now the code is taking a back seat. Now what are the data that we are getting collected from this code is playing a major role, because as you rightly said in the earlier thing, data breach can give access to lot of personal and PII information that is going to come in, right? So your take on it, sir.
you know, from secure code to secure data, this is the most important shift in the AI world today. Because in this game, data is the source of truth. And if your truth is poisoned, your AI becomes dangerous. So I've
I
seen
think
beautiful, secure code bases, clean, optimized, unit tested. But the data set scrapped from the wild west of the internet, no consent, no audit, no context. The result is a perfectly coded, ethically disastrous product. So we need to secure data the way we secure secrets, because in many ways, data is the secret. It fuels the insights, it trains the logic, it tells your product what is right, what is wrong. And if you get that wrong, everything else is just noise. So
sir,
we have to.
I have two questions which have come from one of my colleague, earlier colleague from my earlier organization. I'm bringing them here. So he says, Ravi Ramalingam says, vulnerability assessment will help in capturing the security threat. Is it the correct understanding?
This is one of the ways, yes. There are many other ways to do it, depending upon the kind of vulnerability we are trying to find out. But yeah, the term vulnerability assessment is one of the major ways to find out the threats. That's correct.
He has another question which says how this could be managed by a startup.
Include is by design. Create a culture, let everybody own the code, own the data. Again, same HR saying, I would say, you take care of your employees, employees will take care of your data, your security.
I think to add to this point, what I feel is security is not one person's activity, it's the whole organization's activity.
Absolutely,
So
absolutely.
you you can improve something, that then there is something that we can look at from a standpoint where you feel this can be a potential risk for the organization. You can play a role in a security breach, preventing a security breach. So that has to be looked at. But we do get false positives where we see some things which will come up. But still, a false positive also is an indication that something can go wrong. So
Absolutely.
that's what I will take from that point. Now, coming to the next point, how can startups use DevSecOps and AI governance tools starting from day one, and even with lean teams? Because again, DevSecOps is going to become a big thing again. You have
Absolutely.
CI/CD codes, everything, check-ins, checkouts.
Shift
Developers
left,
feel better. Yeah.
shift left.
So, so how do we look at when we have a very lean team? Is what we want to
You
understand.
know, Mr. Prem, this is not about having a security department or function. It is about having a security mindset. There are lightweight, beautiful tools out there. I can name few: Sync, Trivi, GitHub Secret Scanning, or Wasp cheat sheets. You can plug them into your pipeline for free or
Yeah.
close to free. One founder I worked with had two engineers, no budget, and still had a full DevSecOps pipeline running by week two. It's about automation. Set the trap once, let the robots bark, and when something breaks. And governance, same thing. Use templates, use open source policies. Just start. One checklist today saves a 1,000 line fire drill tomorrow.
Yeah. Agreed.
Security is not about being big, it's about being early.
I think again when you said that security is not it's being early, right? So what I think is people should look at security just not a tick mark, because we spoke this about in the starting part. So security should be by design, by default. Is we spoke also when we spoke about this, because every organization has to look at security as the forefront in protecting the organization's assets, whether it is digital or personal. So you'll have to look at uh, assets which are secure, which are, you cannot leave a hard drive openly available for somebody to grab, right? So that's the, when you look at
I, I,
data
I,
being on a hard drive, right? So that's where we talk about physical assets and digital assets. So
I give an
you have to
example on
really,
that
yeah.
always. We have all the best kind of logical security in place. Nobody can log into get into my network, but I don't lock my data center. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. No, I think there's one question which has come again. I'm bringing it here, which says Akshay Tyagi is coming. What is your take on embedding AI into cyber for AI and AI for cyber? Since nowadays everything and everywhere is AI, do we have a suggestion
You know, in
bifurcating
cybersecurity,
noise versus depth?
we have a saying. This is a new one. All the threats are being created by AI, and then we have AI-based models which are countering these threats. So this is AI versus AI. So that is the take on AI for cybersecurity. Now, cybersecurity for AI is what we have been talking about in this podcast since the morning. Include cybersecurity from the earliest phase possible in your AI development, and you will not go wrong on 100th day. So they both have become, synonyms now. One cannot live without other.
No, I think Akshit, right? So I'm sorry if I'm spelling it wrong. So
Akshat Tyagi.
yeah, so Akshit, what I would say is I have a same but in a different view. What I look at, see, AI has been there for 40 years now, almost, right? So it is AI for manufacturing. If you really look at, we don't have this. I have spoken in multiple podcasts. What we are saying is AI is there for automation predominantly. If you really look at,
Yeah, people confuse between AI and automation.
so AI is having a model to do welding. For example, a car manufacturing unit, you have a design where the robots come and weld that piece of chassis or a door or fix a door or something like that in a process driven way. Nowadays, in the manufacturing industry, I don't see people sitting and having a welding rod in their hand and doing everything is done by robots. That's the first take. Second take is coming to pharma industry. Do you see people coming and folding tablets, putting that and sealing those tablets? That is all gone. It is all a completely automated. A tablet is manufactured, packing and distribution is a complete supply chain now. So there is automation there. Now, what we've been doing as a technology driven, where we talk about systems and all these things, is what we've brought back to ourselves. We are bringing AI or the automation to back to IT itself. That's what I feel what is happening to us when we talk about AI. We are not doing
Absolutely
anything differently. We are doing and enhancing our own policies in terms of infrastructure, in terms of cloud security, in terms of whatever pieces that you want. It is not noise, to be very clearly said. It is depth in what we want to do. It is noise because we hear pockets of information, and that pockets of
correct.
information is not
If you
clear.
see the full picture, you will know the depth.
You will
Cyber
have
is
a clearer
vast.
vision on what AI is doing. Now, many of the processes now today, people go and to ChatGPT and say, "I'm not understanding." It gives you a small, concise, small information, but where is it picking it from? The data that you have stored, or the
Correct.
data which is already kept, and you are trying to retrieve it back because that data is already put by the system somewhere. So that's my take when we talk about what your question talks about. Now AI is getting audited by AI because that's an AI. You also have a threat guy, an attacker using AI, and the person who's want to defend also is using AI. So it's a catch 22 situation where egg first or the chicken first. That's the pointer that we are
Correct.
talking
Correct.
about,
Correct.
right? That's my take on this, on a lengthy answer, but this is my take on what
100%.
we do.
100%.
So coming, we'll come back to our point in when. What are some red flags investors or clients should watch for AI startups today, sir? Because everybody is saying AI. What we've been talking so far, you have AI for everything. You
Yeah,
want to
I'll
build an image, you have an AI. You want to build a video, you have an AI. How do we look at these kind of red flags when we talk about?
certain things like no security policy. It's a huge red flag. No privacy policy is a huge red flag. No security documentation, bigger than that red flag. Founders who say we are not big enough to worry about that yet, another very big flag. So here is my rule. If a startup cannot explain how they handle user data in under 30 seconds, they don't know how they are handling the user data. I've walked into rooms where the founders wowed with product demos, but crumbled when we asked them, how do you manage third party risk? It's like buying a car and realizing there are no brakes, just vibes. The car looks very good. So if you are an investor or an enterprise buyer, don't just ask about tech, ask about trust. It's often the missing slide in the deck. And for me, that is the most important slide you should have.
Very important point. I think apt example is car without brakes. That's a key take that I would like to take. Now, what would an AI plus cyber security checklist look for a preceding startup?
Very simple, yet very powerful. Know your data, map what you collect, where it lives, and why. Set up access control, least privileges always win. Encrypt everything at rest, in transit, even in backups.
Wonderful.
Run basic threat modeling, what can go wrong and how bad. Draft an incident response plan, even if it is just on a napkin. You don't need everything to be perfect. You need the intention. This checklist won't make you bulletproof, but it will make you credible. And that's half the battle won. So, five things: know your data, set up access control, encrypt everything, run basic threat modeling, and draft an incident response plan.
I
It
think
will
I'll
take you
add one
to
more here, sir. Have an MFA implemented, zero trust implemented.
perfect.
Because one way you can get, the second is your mobile device that nobody can steal unless you give. The third thing is you don't trust anybody, right? So I think that's what I think from
Absolutely.
we are having seven pointers. We'll relook and we'll post that again. What is one of the biggest myths startup founders believe about cybersecurity?
No, this is not only now, it has been from ages. We are too small to be target. Why would somebody want to hack me? Seriously, this drives me nuts because hackers love small targets. They are
Yes,
quite easy, no alarms. Security slows down innovation. This is another one. Security slows the innovation. Actually, the opposite is true. Good security frees you to move faster. because you don't live in fear of what is around the corner. And let me give you a spicier one. We use AI, so we are smarter than the attackers. No, you are not. Attackers are just as creative. They also use AI and they have more motivation. So drop the myths, embrace the reality. Security is not a blocker, it's a business strategy, it's a business enabler.
So I think, sir, I would add one more thing here when we talk about is it is always people think it is hard to do at the start, but doing it from start makes it easy when you
Yeah.
go along. Otherwise, doing it after something, it's like
I'll,
preparing
I'll,
a big meal for somebody and forgetting to add the main ingredient, which is rice, kind of.
I'll put that in one line.
Yes,
It
sir.
is hard to start from the beginning, but it is harder to do it in the end.
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely on that. Now, coming to the next point, that what are some personal lessons you've learned from a security challenge during your leadership journey? Because one is being a security guy, the second is leading a security team. So, two things coming here. Now, when we do security, we have certain things, but when we lead, we don't know most of the things because we'll have to look at many pointers which can hamper the way we run business, right? So, your take on
And
it, sir.
this gives me chills. There was only one time where I greenlit a product launch, knowing our pen test was not complete. We were behind the schedule. The team was exhausted. I figured, let's just go live and we'll clean it up later. That was like 25 years back. 1 week later, a researcher emailed us a full dump of our session data. That was the longest walk of my career to the boardroom, explaining what went wrong. So I learned something important that day. You don't win trust by moving fast. You win it by being safe and when it matters the most. The lesson that has shaped everything I have done since then. Seriously.
I think you mentioned this in the earlier point also, where we said is that we need to bring in security first when we talk to investors. They will say one investor or the one pitch we spoke about had said that we are we are secure, we are reliable, and we are responsible, kind of,
Yes.
right? So that's where we get that kind of investors coming in. So coming to our final question that I have is, today we are talking about two things which are very prominently spoken in the industry. Is one is security, one is AI. So these are two things that have been playing an important role, because one is being majorly looking at data that we collect, automation, running stuff, and like that. And the second is how do we protect what we collect. That's the pointer. What is one piece of advice that you would like to give for a young founder building AI tools and somebody joining and learning cybersecurity at a start in 2025?
Before you build your skill, build trust. AI is powerful, beautiful, and sometimes terrifying. And the world doesn't need more tools. It needs tools we can believe in. So build with intention, build with transparency, build with values what makes your grandma proud. Because users are smart, investors are smarter. And if you earn their trust, they'll carry you far. So security is not just about armor, it's about your reputation. And in 2025 and beyond, that's the currency that matters most. Trust. Build it first.
An important point, because if you don't trust, customers don't come and buy things from you. So that's the point that we are trying. Sir, we have come to the final pointer which we discussed just now. I would take a small 2 to 5 minutes where we summarize on what we spoke about. We started with, I've taken some notes where I was looking at some screens like moving. I'm reading them for the benefit of others. So we started with some of the risks that innovators face. That's the start that we did in the first question. Then we spoke about founders must embed. cyber by design from day one, not pitch to scale, post scale kind of stuff. That's what we spoke about. Then we spoke about share some of the advisory roles, especially in the early stages where AI products are emerging. So what advice that we spoke about. Then what could be the attack surfaces, new surfaces when AI is becoming the new attack surface, right? Because everything is AI now. Now, how do we look at attack surface where we spoke about ML models, poisoning, adversarial AI, model theft, real-time case studies that we spoke about. Security must shift from code to algorithm, integrity, and training data products. So that's what we spoke about. Then we spoke about balance of productivity, delivery timelines with secure when we spoke about pressure situations. We just don't want to ship. We want to have a secure code. What is to be shipped securely or not. That is primarily rather than getting to a situation where we pay huge fines. Then what could go wrong if the audits are not part of the AI journey? That's an important point that we spoke about. We shared some of the fines that can come up, what could be reputational damages that can happen, and how investors' trust can be a problem. So that's what we spoke about. Then we spoke about models of what AI frameworks are like a EU AI Act or India's DPDP is what we spoke. Then we spoke about security by design, which we stressed in multiple questions as we spoke, because it should have by design that security is embedded to what you are building. Now, then we spoke about AI models on ethical standards, transparency, explaining how bias detection, audit trials, and all this stuff. Then we spoke about knowledge sharing models, incubators, innovating leaders. We also said mentors from seasoned CISOs can shortcut painful security lessons. That's where we
Absolutely.
emphasized very clearly that you have a CISO who we can guide you how the guidelines are looking at, because security is one thing which is vast and you cannot learn it by yourself. It has to come from a guy who's an expert in that and who's faced real-time challenges. That's what we spoke. We spoke about how role of a CISO changes the whole organization structure itself. And that's where we spoke. And then we spoke about how culture of cybersecurity should be embedded into young startups. That's what we spoke about. Then we spoke about startups having a DevSecOps, one people, 1%, two people, when we have a very lean team is what we spoke about. Then we spoke about AI and cybersecurity checklist from a pre-seed level. That's what we spoke about, where we said checklist for 3 to point 5 pointers checklist, data mapping, threat modeling, role access control. What we said also were 5, 6, 7 pointers that we spoke.
Correct.
Dr. Lalit just said as one I remember was more to look at is having a zero trust model and an MFA model that has to be looked at, and those are the pointers that we spoke about. Some of the myths which can bring down security, can slow you down from growth, is what we spoke about. Then we spoke about relatable, vulnerable, share what can change your thinking. So authenticity builds trust and influence. So that's the other point that we spoke. And finally, we spoke about is don't just learn. First understand what exactly you're trying to implement from a security pointer, and that's where the whole journey starts. What you want to do as a starter today in the career path or an industry or a startup, they have to look at building trust before you scale, is what we spoke. And
Absolutely.
security is the new currency. That's the point that we finally concluded, because without having a secure code, secure product, nobody will trust you. So that's where we ended with Dr. Lalit Gupta being telling it, and we have heard from the doctor. So the cyber doctor is here, and we had a great session, sir. Any last minute pointers before we conclude the session, sir?
No, I was looking at the questions. Ravi Ramalinga asked how
Yeah,
this could be managed by a startup. So I'm assuming he's talking about this cyber for AI and AI for cyber. And how do we manage when everything is AI? One basic framework which I've seen helps every startup ISO 42001,
Mm.
Artificial Intelligence Management System. It gives you the basic, structure of doing everything right. So if you don't even have a support or guidance from somebody, start following that ISO 42001, clause number 4 to 10 and annex your A, you will not go wrong.
I'll add to what Sir is saying. Now there is a shift that we are looking at. We had ISMS. Now ISMS is called AIMS. That's the pointer that we are going to move in, and everything is going to be automated. Most of the things, where you will have to look at what are the AIMS model that is come up. That is 42,000 is what we understand, and Dr. Lalit Gupta is saying that there is a process that you have to look at. I think I should also put my efforts in understanding what is AIMS to have a better understanding.
I'm available.
Thank you for that, sir. With this, I think we would like to conclude our session. We have streamed this podcast live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, and hope we found this discussion valuable. And thank you for joining us. For the audience, our next podcast is scheduled tomorrow, which is 257th episode. Value, how to measure, report, and increase the worth of your network. We are trying something different tomorrow because we've been doing a free session so far. We are going to move from the traditional way of looking at restream going to LinkedIn. We are moving it to Zoom for tomorrow's project. Tomorrow's session, we are doing it on Zoom, and it is a registered uh, login, and that details will be shared on the post tomorrow. We have not finalized the link and stuff, but we have created a restream link and everything. But we want to move that to Zoom. That's the point of that thing. But the podcast is there, but it will be an registered podcast using Zoom. I will put the links onto the session there, and I will put the Zoom link also there tomorrow. And with this, we would like to see you tomorrow on a fresh start that we are trying to do on our 257th episode, moving from this one to a Zoom, this one where we can have more interactive session with more people joining there. That's the session that we are trying to look at. We'll see how far we will succeed on that and see how things are going on. And with this, I would like to conclude and we'll say thank you, sir. Thank you for being here.
Thank you
It's
so
been
much
an
for
honor
having me.
having you here in the session today. I would like to conclude. Thank you, everybody. Good day and bye. See you tomorrow.
Yeah.